Om Sadashivasamārambhām Shankaracarya Madhyamām Asmadacharya Paryantam Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Yasvinavadhitamastu Bhavedvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we'll continue with verse number 18 of the 4th chapter. So please chant with me. Karmanya karmayah pasyed.
Karmanya karmayah pasyed.
Akarmani cha karmayah.
Akarmani cha karmayah.
Sabuddhiman manushyeshu.
Sabuddhiman manusyeshu.
Sayukta kritsna karma krit. Okay, so we saw one interpretation of the whole verse, and in simple words, what was that? In 2 lines, what is the interpretation? That Atma can never do any action, Anatma will always be active. The simple interpretation, simplest and correct interpretation of the verse is that. Okay. So Shankara's commentary is now over on this verse. But now Shankara also gives you an opportunity to sharpen your brains. So though this is the official, whatever we have studied in the last class is the official or the correct Shastric interpretation, according to Shankara, Shankara gives us an overview of a different interpretation. Just for, it's an exercise in sharpening your intellect. Okay, nothing else. It's just to sharpen your intellect. So there is a school of philosophy called Jnana Karma Samuchchaya. Okay, what does the school say? That Jnanam by itself is not sufficient to give moksha. It says Jnanam has to be combined with karma in order to give you moksha. Knowledge by itself cannot give you freedom, cannot give you liberation. A particular philosopher says that, school of philosophy says that you have to combine karma with jnanam, then only you can get moksha. And they say that is why there is so much of karma in the Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna is pointing out that unless you combine the two, there is no benefit at all. So there is a very famous philosopher of this particular school called Bhartru Prapancha. Bhartru Prapancha, that is his name. Okay. Prapancha doesn't mean universe here, it's his name, Bhartru Prapancha. And according to Bhartru Prapancha, he looks at this particular verse and he says, you take the first part, karmani akarma yapashyet. So he says, whatever you are saying, Shankara, about anatma, atma and all that, that is all rubbish. My interpretation is that karmani akarma yapashyet. What does it mean? In karma, I should see akarma. And his interpretation is that, what is known as nitya naimittika karma in the Vedas, mandated karma. For example, Pancha Mahayajna, that is nitya karma, right? So according to this school of philosophy, nitya karma does not produce any phalam at all, does not produce any fruit at all. And therefore he says, if you are doing nitya karma, then effectively, for example, if you are doing Pancha Mahayajna, so it's called nitya karma anushtanam, practicing nitya karma. If you are doing regularly, then you have to apply this verse there. You have to say, in that karma which you do, I see akarma. Why? Because according to this school of philosophy, nitya karma does not produce any result. The performance of Pancha Mahayajna therefore cannot be seen as performance of karma. It should be seen, performance of any nitya karma like Panchamahayajna, Agnihotram, these should actually be classified as non-performance of karma. Why? Because according to this particular school of thought, Bharti Prapancha and his Darshana, the performance of nitya karma does not produce any karma phalam. It is like, it's like income tax, for example. You have to pay the tax. What is the benefit in paying the tax? There is no benefit. But if you don't pay the tax, what happens? It's an offense and you get penalized. Are you following the argument?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So he says, this Bharata Prapancha says that, therefore, if you don't do nitya karma, there will be a papam, which is called pratyavaya papam. But if you do nitya karma, there is no production of any karma phala. And therefore, because any karma has necessarily to be associated with karma phalam to be called a karma, nitya karma, because it doesn't produce a karma, produce a phalam, has to be viewed as akarma, as non-karma. And that is why Krishna says, karmani akarmaya pasyet. So what he means is that when you see nitya karma, when you do nitya karma, you must look upon that nitya karma as not doing any karma, because fact is that there is no phalam produced. Clear? This is the argument of Bharata Prapancha. And therefore, yes, please.
So when he has put up this philosophy, so what is the basis? Where did he pick up this philosophy, this idea that nitya karma will not produce any karma?
It is his interpretation. That's why it's called a darshanam.
Okay.
It is his way of seeing.
Right.
Okay, that's that darshanam. This is the way it sees.
Okay.
And therefore he's saying this is how it is. And therefore, arising from that argument, you look at the second quarter, akarmani karma pasyet. Therefore, he says the word akarmani is to be taken as non-performance of nitya karma. And what does non-performance of nitya karma represent? It represents as if a karma has been performed. Why? Because the non-performance of nitya karma, it gives rise to a special type of papam, which is called pratyavaya papam. So he says, the people who understand performance of nitya karma as non-performance of karma and non-performance of nitya karma as performance of some karma, that is the correct interpretation of this particular verse. This is what he says. This is the interpretation of Bharata Prapancha. Do you understand the difference? Bharata Prapancha refers purely to karma akarma in terms of performance of nitya karma. Shankaracharya said it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the very swarupam, the very nature of Atma and Anatma. Okay, so these are the two different interpretations. We are of course going by Shankara's interpretation, and Shankara dismisses Bharata Prapancha's interpretation with a very simple statement. He says, this understanding that you have said of yours, that non-performance of nitya karma is karma and performance of nitya karma is akarma, what is the benefit? What is the prayojanam? There is no benefit arising out of that knowledge. Is it not? This knowledge, what benefit does it give me? It doesn't give me any benefit. It is not going to give me chitta shuddhi. Why? Because why will not give chitta shuddhi? Because we are talking about not the karma, we are talking about this knowledge. There's a big difference in what I am saying. This karma of nitya karma will definitely give you chitta shuddhi. This is the Vedantic interpretation, though Bharata Prapancha says that performance of nitya karma has no benefit at all. It will not give any phalam at all, but we don't accept, so I'll come to that. But Shankara is telling him that this knowledge that you have said, this understanding of yours, that cannot produce chitta shuddhi. Why? Because only performing the nitya karma will produce chitta shuddhi. Right? So Bharata says that this knowledge has to be followed up by action, and therefore knowledge plus action, jnana karma samuchaya, that alone can produce chitta shuddhi. That is the argument. That knowledge itself is not going to give you any benefit. That knowledge has to be followed by nitya karma. And therefore, that knowledge that nitya karma, doing nitya karma will not produce any phalam, that knowledge is good knowledge. But unless that knowledge is implemented by following the follow-up and doing nitya karma, there will be no chitta shuddhi. So the knowledge does not give any benefit. So that is what Shankara points out, that that knowledge of yours by itself, it is of no use. Whereas, what has Krishna said in the earlier verses, the very jnanam will give moksha. That very atma jnanam, the knowledge itself will produce moksha. That is what Krishna says. So Shankara points out that your argument, your interpretation is not correct because it violates Krishna's words. That knowledge alone will give you moksha. Okay. Then, of course, Shankara makes one more point. He is dismissing the argument, the philosophy of these people, saying that nitya karma does not produce phalam. Shankara says that is not correct because any karma, nitya karma, for example, any karma will give in two results. What are the two results? Depending upon sankalpa. So any karma, remember, which includes nitya karma, will produce two results. The results depend purely on the sankalpa. How do we say that? If while doing nitya karma, you ask for material benefit, then the result will be material benefit. If while doing nitya karma, you don't ask for material benefit, or you ask for chitta shuddhi, the result is the same. Even if you don't ask for material benefit, that karma has to produce a result, and therefore it will produce chitta shuddhi. If you ask for chitta shuddhi, again it will produce chitta shuddhi. And therefore Shankara says that, hey Bharata Prapancha, your argument that nitya karma does not produce phalam is not correct. That nitya karma will definitely generate punyam, which leads to either material benefits or chitta shuddhi, one of these two results. And Shankara says, why would Shastra prescribe a karma which has no fruits? Why would Shastra say, do a karma which has no fruits? Nobody will respect Shastra, right? If somebody comes and tells you, do this work, but there are no results of the work, would you do it? No. So even the worst, even the dullest of people, unless there is a prayojanam, unless there is a fruit from particular action, they won't do it. And Shastra, Shankara says, having come from the Lord, Shastra can never prescribe a fruitless karma, a useless karma, Shastra can never prescribe. So therefore, based on this argument, Shankara talks about the concept of pratyavaya papa, which Meda had raised in the last class, right? So what was the argument here? When nitya karma is not done, there can be no production of papa. Okay, now we are using Shankara argument. Because Bharata Prapancha says that nitya karma is like income tax. If you don't pay income tax, you get punished. And therefore, if you don't do nitya karma, there is a production of papam, which is called pratyavaya papam. That is what Bharata Prapancha Darshana says. Shankara says that when nitya karma is not done, it is karma abhava, non-doing of karma. There is no karanam. And therefore, a non-existent cause, a non-existent karanam cannot be a producer. Why? A non-existent cow, can it give you milk? It can't. And going by the same logic, a non-existent karma cannot produce anything. And therefore, you need to recall, na sato vidyate bhavaha. There's a long discussion we had once upon a time on Shankara Bhashyam on the 16th verse of chapter 2. All that needs to be brought to memory. And there is another school of thought, okay, which is called Asat Karyavada. Asat Karyavada means production of a product from a non-existing cause. Asat is Asat Karanam Karyavada, which means Karya means a product. Asat Karanam means a non-existent cause will produce an existing result. This is the philosophy of the Darshanas, which you know as Nyaya Darshana and Vaishika Darshana. Both these Nyayas and Vaiseshikas combined, we call them Nyaya Vaisheshikas. They have this philosophy that for a product to be born, the cause need not exist. But Vedanta says that is not possible. We do not accept Asat Karyavada. We do not accept the fact that from a non-existent cause, an existing product can be born. Why? Because it is obvious. Otherwise, you can have a perpetual supply of butter in your house. You don't need milk for it. You have a non-existent milk. From that non-existent milk, every day you extract butter. And therefore, there is no problem. You don't need any grains in your house. Because from the non-existent grain, you cook that non-existent grain and you make rice. The world's poverty problems are solved in one instant, which is Asat Karyavada. There is never any logical base to it. So Vedanta does not accept. So then how to explain this Pratyavaya Papam? Because see, the fact is that Vedanta also accepts the non-performing of Nitya Karma will produce Pratyavaya Papam. This statement Vedanta accepts. It doesn't accept the reasoning behind it. So what is the reasoning for us? We say that by doing Nitya Karma, you are neutralizing the daily accumulated papa. And that's why in the last class I said it is like sweeping a room. By sweeping the room, you are removing the daily dust. Okay. And if you don't sweep the room, what happens? The daily dust accumulates and then you can see it. So the logic is that it is not the non-sweeping which is producing the dust. It is the non-sweeping which is revealing the accumulation of the dust. Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
It is the non-sweeping is not producing the dust. The non-sweeping is revealing the accumulated dust. And similarly, the non-doing of Nitya Karma is not producing a papam. It is revealing the accumulation of the papams which have not been neutralized because of non-doing of Nitya Karma. Therefore, Nitya Karma, non-doing, the absence of doing Nitya Karma is not the producer of Pratyavaya Papam. It is a revealer of the Papam already being generated, which is given a name called Pratyavaya Papam. That is the first explanation. And secondly, Shankara says that if you don't do Nitya Karma, you will have a lot of free time, right? And you will end up doing karma which is prohibited. And that prohibited karma, because it is being done, it will produce papam. So these are two reasons why Pratyavaya Papam is produced when Nitya Karma is not done. One, because it is not cleaning the original papam being done and therefore revealing it. The other, because by not doing Nitya Karma, it is more than likely that you will do Nisheda Karma, prohibited karma, and that will produce papam. Therefore, he says that when Shastra talks about the absence of Nitya Karma producing Pratyavaya Papam, it is indicating that you are not doing dharma. It is adharma anushtanam. You are actually doing adharma, and that is why papam is being produced. Okay. Very, very detailed explanation on that verse number 16. That Pratyavaya Papam argument, please remember, because it will come up again and again. And not very many people can answer the question. When there is an absence of a cause, how can the product be there? This is the answer. It is not the producer, it is the revealer. Any questions?
Sir, I think you once used the word Gyapakam.
Yes. Gyapakam means which reveals. Okay, right. Now we go to verse number 19. As I said, verse number 19 to 24 are basically an explanation of verse number 18. So let us look at verse number 19. We will chant. Yasya sarve samarambha
यस्य सर्वे समारम्भाः
kama sankalpa varjitaha
कामसङ्कल्पवर्जिताः
jnanagnidagdha karmanam
ज्ञानाग्निदग्धकर्माणम्
amahuh panditam budhaha.
आहुः पंडितं बुधाः
Okay. So, yasya sarve samarambhaha kama sankalpa varjitaha jnana agni dagdha karmanam tam ahuhu panditam buddhaha. So, yasya means for that person, sarve samarambhaha, all actions, all undertakings. Yasya sarve samarambaha. For that person, for whom all his actions, kama sankalpa varjitaha, are free from kamaha, desire for results, and sankalpaha, the expectation of what the result will be like, and also jnana agni dagdha karmanam. All the karmanam are burnt, dagdha, by what? Jnana agni, by the fire of knowledge. For such a person, what happens? Buddhaha, the wise people, the jnanis, tam panditam ahu. Such a person they call as a pandita, a wise man. So this, once a jnani has discovered that he is Brahman, that he is Purnam. Brahman means Purnatvam. Purnatvam means completeness. Once a person discovers that he is complete, there could be a question, right? What is the motivation for him to do any work? Because we said, what is the sequence? There is Apurnatvam. Because of Apurnatvam, there is a desire to become Purna. Because of the desire to become Purna, I do karma. Because of the karma, I get papam punyam. Because of papam punyam, I get rebirth. This is the cycle. But the very basis, apurnatvam, which is the cause of desire, is absent, he is saying, in this jnani. And therefore, what is the motivation for that jnani to do any work? And today's, management books, they talk about the fire in the stomach, eternally discontented. Unless you are eternally discontented, you will have no drive to do any work. That is the philosophy today. Any management class you go, they'll say, where is the ambition? Where is the drive? What do you want to become? The moment you say, what do you want to become? What are you saying? I am not happy with what I am. I want to become something else. And therefore, I have to be discontent. Unless I am discontent, I will not be driven. Unless I am driven, I will not make progress. This is the today's philosophy. And Krishna says that is all rubbish. A person can work even when he is content. In fact, if you analyze it, true efficiency, 100% efficiency comes out only when there is fullness, only when there is Purnatvam. And the Purnam person's contribution is the greatest because of he has no vested interest, he has no axe to grind, right? Therefore, his focus is maximum. Nothing disturbs his mind, neither the result, the fear of failure, the fear of success, what people will say. What his parents will say, what nobody's views are going to disturb this person's mind, and therefore his entire mind is available for doing the work. Therefore, the contentment of the jnani, the purnatvam of the jnani, is the driving force for this particular work. But since he has no desires, any karma has to have a desire. What is the driving force of that karma then? Contentment is happiness, is purnatvam. That cannot be a driving force. And therefore, Shastram says, yes, this person is purnam. But purnam means what? He knows that everybody is Brahman, not just he. Everybody he sees is also Brahman. He knows that. And therefore, when he sees somebody else in distress, what is the emotion he will feel? He will feel that pain himself. And therefore, his driving force is that of compassion. So, because of the universal identification to everybody, his nature becomes that one of universal compassion. For most of us, remember, feeling compassion for somebody else, it is a deliberate attempt. But for the jnani, this compassion has become instinctive. It is part of his own nature. And just as you cannot separate heat from the fire or light from the sun, this compassion you cannot separate from the jnani. The Shastra says, there's a word they use, ahetuka daya sindhuhu. Ahetuka means without any motive, daya sindhuhu, ocean of compassion. The jnani is an ocean of compassion, and that compassion is part of his intrinsic nature, so it does not require any reason to be compassionate. Okay. So what does the jnani do? He does whatever is required according to the people around him. And therefore, Krishna says, Yasya, for that jnani, sarve samarambaha, his jnani is full of activities. He is as active as an ajnani is. There is a difference. What is the difference? Kama sankalpa varjitaha. Jnani's activities are not caused by discontentment, not arising out of apurnatvam. He is content when he is active. He is content when he is not active also. The example is that of a teacher. In fact, Pujya Swami Dayanandji, once he said, it seems, why does the teacher teach? He said, why does the teacher teach? If the teacher teaches, or we are talking about Shastric teaching, okay, not physics and chemistry and maths. So if the teacher teaches because he thinks he is going to get something out of that teaching, then Swamiji says, Sahana Pashyati, he has not understood the Shastram at all. And he says, when he understands, when this teacher understands that I am the teacher, but I am not the teacher. When he can say that I am the teacher and I am not the teacher, then only has he understood the teaching. What does it mean? I am the teacher and yet I am not the teacher.
That he is playing the role of a teacher, but essentially it is the
I
Guru
want a more
Shishya.
specific answer in terms of Tattva Bodha.
What he is teaching is not his own teaching, but what he has got from Shruti.
No.
He's just
Karma abhasa.
No, he realizes a nishtha, jnana nishtha, so he is performing action without.
No. You remember our Vedanta Sara talks? In any jiva, there are three components. What are they?
Sattvic and
No.
or
RC, OC and RM.
RC, OC and RM, right? So when he says, I am the teacher, he is saying, I, the RC, am the teacher. When he says, I am not the teacher, he is saying, I, the OC, am not the teacher. That is the understanding. When the jnani can say, when the teacher can say that, then only has he understood the teaching. Okay, and what is the reason for a teacher to teach, you might ask. Such a person, what is the reason to teach? Because if someone wants to learn, the teacher has to teach. This is the law of Shastra. The Vedic law is that if a qualified student approaches you and asks for the teaching, you have no option but to give. It is a rule. It's a mandatory rule that teacher cannot say no to a student providing the student is qualified. And therefore, if the teacher teaches, he will teach only for one reason, that there is somebody who wants to learn, a qualified student who wants to learn. If you look at this, you will understand that he is teaching without any need to teach. He is not getting anything out of the teaching. He is doing it because the student wants to learn. That is what is being said in this verse. So nothing is lost if he teaches. Nothing is lost if he does not teach for himself. And Swamiji also says something very beautifully. He says, if anyone thinks, any teacher thinks that he is teaching to save the world. So supposing a teacher thinks, and there are a lot of people who say that today, a lot of teachers say that, I am teaching to save the world. So Swamiji says that if a teacher thinks that he is teaching to save the world, it is in fact the teacher who needs to be saved, because he is under a great delusion. And in the meantime, the world has to be saved from such a teacher. I'm a very pithy reply. If a teacher thinks that he is saving the world, number one, it is a teacher who needs to be saved. Number two, it is the world who needs to be saved from such a teacher. Okay. What is the, like today, for example, if I am having problems with the world, I think the world is bothering me, this, that, and the other. What is the problem? If I cannot accept other people, the root cause, Shastram says, you cannot accept yourself. That is why you cannot accept the world. And when you cannot accept the world, you are going to find fault with every person, every job, every event in this world. You're going to find a problem. And this will continue because self-rejection, the expression of self-rejection, my non-acceptance of myself, the expression of that is in the non-acceptance of the world. And when I begin to accept myself, then that expression of my self-acceptance, the external expression is what? Acceptance of everybody in the world. The problem is never with the world. The problem is with you yourself. And this Jnani, therefore, he is at home with himself. And therefore, he is at home with the world. So for him, he is fine as he is. He enjoys doing whatever he does. If he travels, he does not travel from unhappiness to happiness. Like a lot of people today, when they go on a holiday, they think that, in my current world, I'm unhappy. And when I go for a 5-day holiday, I will be happy. So his travel from unhappiness to happiness, that does not happen for the Jnani. His travel is always from happiness to happiness to happiness. So in success, the Jnani is happy. In failure, the Jnani is happy. Then you have to ask yourself, is there a connection between the environment and my Purnatvam? There is not. There is no connection at all. So all of us think that it is because of the environment that I am happy or unhappy. It is really not so, because the environment belongs to Vyavaharika reality, Vyavaharika Satta, Vyavaharika reality. The transactional reality, all your environment, all your circumstances, your body-mind complex, they all belong to Vyavahara. While the Purnatvam, it belongs to Paramarthika. And the Jnani does not mix up these two orders, Vyavaharika and Paramarthika. In Vyavaharika, he will behave as a Vyavaharika should. In Paramarthika, there is silence. He understands that I am the higher I. The karmas, the actions, the punyam, the papam, they all belong to Vyavaharika. Therefore, we said, ahankara vimudatma kartaram iti manyate. Only when I am identified with my ahankara, only when there is a sankalpa or motivation, then only it produces papa. That is why we saw in Tattva Bodha that a jnani does not generate agami karma at all. And therefore Krishna says, karmanam dagdha. All his karmas are destroyed in the fire of that knowledge. Like the roasted seed. A roasted seed looks exactly like a seed. You can touch it, you can handle it. What is the one difference? It cannot give rise to a plant. There is no germination possible from that seed. So the jnani's RC, the ahankara, is exactly like this roasted seed. The ahankara has got existence, functional existence. If you ask the jnani who you are, he will give you a description, right? But he is giving the description of the ahankara which has been roasted. But that ahankara is incapable of taking him to samsara. And for roasting the ahankara, what do you need? For roasting a normal seed, you need fire. For roasting the RC, you need jnana agni. And therefore Krishna says, tam panditaha ahuhu. Panda means atma jnanam. Itaha means endowed with. Therefore, panditaha is a person who is got atma jnana. So he is called a jnani by whom? Buddhaha, the wise people alone. Right? A very important word. Tam panditaha buddhaha ahu. What does it mean? Only a jnani can say that another person is a jnani. Only a jnani can recognize another jnani. That is why in the ashram, when you do your TTC, you get the title what? Yoga Shiromani. But the one who confers the title to you, he must himself also be a Yoga Shiromani. And this verse is pointing out this fact to us. Okay, any questions, please?
Acharya,
Yes, Jude.
what is the meaning of Yoga Shiromani?
You've done your TTC, Baba.
Yes.
Look at the certificate. Look at the certificate. What does it say?
It says teacher of yoga, but I just wanted to check with you.
Shiromani is, Shirom is the head, Mani is a jewel.
Mm-hmm.
Shiromani is a jewel in the head, on the crown. So the one who has yoga as a jewel in his crown is a Yoga Shiromani. That certificate says Yoga Shiromani, incidentally. Go and check it out. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yoga Shiromani is the title given to the student who has passed TTC. At least in Shivananda Ashram. What is the title given to a person who has passed ATTC?
Acharya.
Yoga Acharya. So those titles are there in the certificate itself. Okay, now we go to the next verse, which is verse number 20. So we will chant. Please unmute yourself. Tyaktva karma phala sangam nitya tripto nirashrayah karma pravrittopi naiva kinchit karoti saha. Okay, let me just mute all of you all. Right. Now look at the words. Tyaktva, having given up. Karma phala sangam. Sangam is attachment, deep attachment. So tyakta karma phala sangam, having given up the deep attachment to karma phalam, to the results of action, to the consequences of action, I have to give up the attachment. So that's a very important verse. Tyakta karma phala sangam. You are giving up not the karma phalam, right? You are giving the attachment to the karma phalam you are giving up. And therefore only nitya triptaha, eternally content, and nira ashrayaha, not dependent on anything. So this is all description of jnani. He has given up karma phalam. He is always content. He is independent, does not depend upon anybody for his happiness. And saha, that jnani, na karoti kinchit eva. He does not do anything. Na kinchit eva karoti. He does not even do anything. Api, even though karmani abhipravartaha. Even though he is constantly abhipravartaha, fully engaged in karmani, in action. So he says, remaining satisfied and independent and having dropped the attachment towards all karma phalam, this jnani remains engaged in action, and yet he never performs any action. So again, it's an explanation of the 18th verse. So there's a saying, Ajnanam samsara karanam, jnanam moksha karanam. Ignorance is the cause of bondage. Knowledge is the cause of liberation. How to get knowledge? So getting this jnanam does not depend upon the lifestyle that you have. You can be a brahmachari, you can be a vanaprasthi, you can be a grihastha, you can be a sannyasi, you can be a brahmana, you can be a kshatriya, you can be a vaishya, you can be a shudra. Your religion does not matter. You can be male, you can be female. The profession does not matter. You can be a teacher, you can be a warrior, you can be a politician. The nationality does not matter. You can be Indian, you can be Chinese, you can be American, you can be British. So only one thing matters. What is that? Krishna is going to talk about it. And now in these 4 verses, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 5 verses, and 24. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Krishna talks about 2 types of jnanis. The sannyasi jnani and the grihastha, the householder jnani and the sannyasi jnani. Sannyasi is a monk, right? Verse number 21 is about the sannyasi jnani. Verse number 22, 22, 20, 22, 23, 24 are about the householder jnani, grihastha jnani. So here he says, karmani api abhipravartaha, even though he is constantly engaged in action, because grihastha, a householder, he has a family, he is part of society, he is part of community, he has duties towards his wife, his parents, his children. Everybody has to be settled. When the children are settled, they have to be married off. When they are married off, the grandchildren are there. Grandchildren have to be taken care of. Constantly engaged in action. Abhipravartaha. So pravartaha means active. Abhipravartaha means extremely, constantly active. Which is the same with the Ajnani also, right? But we are talking about Jnani. So what is the difference between Jnani's actions and Ajnani's actions? Nitya triptaha. This Jnani, he is constantly satisfied. Purnam he is. Therefore, he does not seek any fulfillment, any happiness through his activities. That is why Nitya triptaha. He is already happy. He is constantly happy. His activities are not for the purpose of seeking happiness. And activities are so many, right? Arrival of a child, child education, child's wedding, arrival of grandchildren, their education. The list is never ending. And therefore, the Jnani knows that this list will never be completed. And therefore, to connect your happiness with karma is not a good idea. So he knows that. And therefore, having achieved Purnatvam, having achieved fulfillment, he does not connect his Purnatvam with his karma. So for him, if the people are around, it is great, So the wife is around, it is wonderful. And some people will say that the wife is not around, it is even more wonderful. Either way, people are around, great. People are not around, also great. Right? This does not mean, that You should go as a jnani does not mean that you should go and tell your wife that it doesn't matter if you're there or not. I'm happy either way. So those sort of things are not being indicated here. So all those white lies, sending WhatsApp, I'm missing you, blah, blah, blah. All this you should continue to do if you want peace in the house. Otherwise, you should be a sannyasi. Okay. And it is not really hypocrisy, right? Because you might say that if you don't want all this, why are you saying it? Is it not hypocrisy? It's not really hypocrisy. Why? Because people always need to be patted. You are great, I'm wonderful, I miss you. All these things you must say. It doesn't take away from your jnana. Okay. So what is the understanding of the jnani? I give support, I give love. Right? I don't seek either support, I don't seek love also. I just give. I am the perpetual giver. I don't need to receive because I already have all of it in great measure. Whenever a person seeks support, that love is in danger of turning into attachment. And therefore the jnani does not have this emotional problem at all. That's why he says, Nitya triptaha aham purna asmi. I am always purna. So we call it the UPS, uninterrupted power system. You know what it is, right? Especially in small towns. But this is a Vedantic UPS. What is the difference? It's an uninterrupted Purnatvam supply system. It supplies you Purnatvam constantly. What supplies you? Your knowledge. And once that Purnatvam is there, Nirashrayaha. I don't need anybody else. I don't need a psychological dependence on anybody outside me, on any external factor. Because any leaning on anybody or anything is what basically? It's a sign of weakness of mind, emotional weakness. Your mind is not strong enough. And the very purpose of Vedanta is to give you a mind which is so strong that nothing disturbs it. That is why we keep talking about FIR. So it's like, when a person with a walking stick, there can be two reasons why he uses a walking stick. One is because his legs are weak and he depends on the stick. One is, the other one is what? It's a statement of style. He's walking around and he's swinging the stick on his hand. It's a statement of style. So using the walking stick as a support is weakness. Using it as a statement of independence is jnanam. So nirashrayaha, he is not psychologically dependent upon the word. The word psychologically is very important because physical dependence upon the external world, you can never avoid. Food is required, clothing is required, shelter is required. Physically, you will all have to be dependent upon the world. Even if not now, as you grow older, you will have to depend upon the world. But it is important to understand that this physical dependence is not the cause of samsara. It is the emotional dependence alone which is the cause of samsara. And that is why we say the jnani is emotionally independent. Nirashrayaha. Not having any dependence, right? The moment you have a dependence, you have set up the samsara seed. And therefore he says, karma phala asangam tyatva. He is not even concerned about the results of the action. There is no dependence upon that also. Okay. Somebody might say, how can you do action if you are not concerned? For example, if somebody says, in the ashram, for example, tells you that your job is to mop the floor. How are you not concerned about the result of the action? Because there is a result expected, right? So Shastra says that there are two things. One is expectation. One is worry. Okay. So expectation is based on the planning. So when somebody tells you that your job, your karma yoga is to mop the floor twice a day, there is an expectation that the floor should be clean. But concern is based on worry. So here thing is, we have all expectations, right? There is no harm in having expectations. We have expectations from life. We have expectations from your spouses, from your friends, for your children. But for most of us, when the expectation is fulfilled, it is fine and we are all happy. But Krishna is asking, when the expectation is not fulfilled, what kind of psychological immunity do you have? What kind of protection do you have? Have you built up? Have you trained your mind not to be problematic, not to be disturbed unduly when expectations are not fulfilled? So somebody said very nicely, a success in life is nothing but preparation for a failure. And men who are well prepared for failures, those men are successful persons. And if you are not prepared for failures, you will be fine only as long as you succeed. The moment failure comes, you will be emotionally shattered. And therefore, what preparation should you have? Karma phala asangam tyatva. Emotional dependence you should drop. So with this healthy mind, the Jnani performs all actions. And what is his condition? Look at the last quarter. Nyaya kinchit karoti saha. Even though he constantly does actions, in effect, such a Jnani is as good as free from all actions. Because in and through all the actions, he remembers it is only the body-mind complex. It is only the RC which is acting, and that he actually is the OC. So he is as good as free from those actions, because those actions are no more a burden for him. There is no more concern about the action or the result of that action. They do not produce tension. They do not produce anxiety. That Jnani lives a comfortable life. Okay. Any questions?
Om Acharya ji.
Yes, Amit ji, boliye.
So my question is that in this verse, like if we know internally that I am not dependent on this person, and then also I say, yeah, I need you. So is it not like speaking asatya?
Well, whom does it harm? There is always a conflict between this jnanam and the duty of a householder, right? What is the duty of a husband? You have to make your wife feel comfortable. So there is no harm in telling her that, I need you, I love you, all those things. It's fine. And it is not that you don't love. That is not what I have said. Don't misunderstand. Loving is possible under two conditions. One is you love because that person fulfills some need of yours. Okay, and that is the normal form of loving. You have an expectation from your wife, she fulfills it, therefore you love. And when the expectation stops, the love also goes out of the window. The other thing is you fulfill that, you love that person because she is your wife. You don't have any expectations. Whether that person fulfills your expectations or not, you continue to love her. Which love is superior? That is what is being said.
So Acharya ji, I wanted to say, let's say as a Jnani, I am compassionate with my all people who are living with me. I'm compassionate, and because of compassion, I'm loving them. I want to help her. It's just a compassion because of which I'm loving. But to say that I like you said, Nagi, if I'm internally I don't need her, but then also I'm saying I need you.
If you are a Jnani, you don't say I and you.
Mm-hmm.
The very, very outlook of a Jnani is what? There is nobody who is different from me. And therefore, whenever you talk about I and you are talking at RC level. But at OC level, you know that your wife is also Brahman, you are also Brahman, and you love yourself because you are Brahman. And therefore, your wife is also Brahman, so you love your wife also. How can you not? So the moment you say, I am a jnani, but how can I say I love you? That I has been, confused. One is the paramarthika I the jnani, the OC. But the moment you say, how can I love her? That is the RC. You are confused.
Got it.
One statement has to have the same I. We cannot use half a statement in one eye and another half a statement in another eye.
Correct. Thank you, Acharya.
Okay. I don't think we have time for any more verses, so we'll just take the questions now.
Om Acharya-ji.
Yes, Renko.
In the previous words, the terms Buddha and Pandita, they mean the same thing?
Yes, but here Buddha says means the wise people say. The wise people call him a Pandita. So Jnani calls such a person a Jnani. What we are saying is only a Jnani can recognize another Jnani. So when you find some friend telling you that that man is a Jnani, you should take it with a lot of salt. Because unless your friend is a Jnani, it is only a expression of some sorts. That he's a very good person, he knows a lot, all those things.
Okay, thank you.
That is why in all the Puranas you will find that it is only a Jnani who will refer to another person as a Jnani.
Right, thank you. There's another question, Acharya-ji.
Yeah.
So we were speaking of the Jnani doing actions because actions have to be done. And the karmas which are done, all the nishkam karmas, whatever karmas we are doing at any point of time, they will all fall under the category, some category of the nitya karma only daily. Is it not?
No,
Because
nitya karma is karma mandated by scriptures, karma kanda. Don't extend that to daily actions. Laukika karma cannot be karma. Nitya karma is karma specifically mandated by scriptures.
But this is where my confusion is, that all the 5 categories of the karma which are mandated by the Shastras, for a Jnani, if he's a wise person, acts of charity, they will all be essentially a part of that karma only, or does that mean that Nitya karma has to be thought and then therefore done for?
I have not understood the question.
All categories of charity, whatever nishkam karma are done, will fall in.
See, dhanam is a very important quality. But nitya karma is basically panchamahayajna. To put it in short. So, dhanam is a quality which you develop. I still haven't followed what exactly you are trying to say,
Raviji, what is Panchamahayajna?
You have to go back to chapter 3. And we had a long discussion on that.
Sorry.
So you have to go back to chapter 3. You have to revise properly. As the chapters are going ahead, you cannot afford to miss. So if you have missed, please go back, revise everything.
Sorry, Acharya, I think I lost the signal.
Yeah, Rinku, tell me.
No, the question that I was asking, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. The signal got lost.
The question that you're asking is not very clear. What exactly is your confusion?
Okay, so Acharya ji, the Nitya karma are into 5 categories.
Define the 5 categories, please, according to your understanding.
Dev Yagna, Brahma Yagna.
Yeah, so Panchamahayajna, fine.
The Panchamahayajna.
Yeah.
So a wise person, a Jnani knows, for us also as Karma Yogis, we know that these actions have to be done, like you mentioned, otherwise the Pratyavaya Papam happens.
Okay. Fine. Then?
By the law of karma, because the body exists, so action will happen, and therefore some kind of papam will happen, even for the wise person.
No, you're wrong.
Because it's taken as
the very creation of karma phalam is because of doership, kartrutvam. Kartrutvam is what defines what is the difference between a jnani and ajnani. As a ajnani, you think RC is operating. You are doing the karma. You are the RC. As a jnani, I know the RC is doing, but I am not the RC. So the kartrutvam, that I am doing this, that is lost. That is the difference between jnani and ajnani.
Okay, thank you, Acharya. I got the confusion.
Yes, Kush.
Hariom Ravi sir.
Hariom.
Sir, essentially the essence of 18th verse is that on the OC level, we never, a jnani never acts, and on the RC level, or let's say on the when he says that on the RC level, we basically cannot stop acting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir. Just
that is a very specific answer. That Atma can never act, Anatma will always act.
So the best way to act is by, as you said, non-doership.
Non-doership, then see, once you are jnani, you have lost the kartritvam. Then it is your prarabdha karma which decides how the body will act. And compassion of a jnani, which is part of your prarabdha. Yeah.
At the current stage of evolution, we should just do Shravanam and Mananam and not follow to practicing.
Practicing what?
Practicing the idea of non-doership constantly.
There is no practicing idea of non-doership. Either you are a non-doer or you are a doer.
Okay.
You can keep telling yourself, I am a non-doer till kingdom come. But that kartritvam will go when you know that you are Brahman. When you have established in the understanding that you are Brahman. When you are a jnana nishtha.
So when the Chitta Shuddhi happens, it happens automatically.
Chitta Shuddhi happens, then Shravanam will happen, then Mananam will happen, and then Nididhyasanam will happen. All the Viparita Bhavana will be removed. Then one fine day you will say, oh, I am Brahman, I always was Brahman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Raviji.
Yes, Pandana.
My question is also a bit related to what Kush was just saying. So the doubt here is, do you continue with the spirit of karma yoga, or at some point you also start remembering that this is, or you remind yourself more and more that this is not really you, the doer?
Well, there is something which you continue to do, right? The very reason why Shastram, prescribes sannyasa is this. That when karma yoga has done its job, then unnecessary karma you don't need. Unnecessary karma means karma which is arising out of your relationships, you don't need. And that is why Shastram says that at that point of time, when you are ready, you should go to the forest. Of course, there are no forests now, but at least you can go into your own room and shut the door. So that is the thing, that certain karma you cannot avoid. What is that? Breathing you can't avoid. You can't avoid eating. You can't avoid, taking care of your body. All these things are mandatory karmas which you need. Sleeping. But while doing that, what is your other activity? Are you focused on what you're going to get out of your actions? Then you are not a jnana yogi. Or is it simply the whole time is nididhyasanam, saying that I am Brahman and the body will continue to do its work? Then that is nididhyasanam. So, as an advanced seeker, you should more and more be all the time reiterating to yourself the fact that you are Brahman. That 24/7 nididhyasanam, aham Brahma asmi. That is a constant reminding yourself that you are Brahman. That is why, in all these movies and all, they show that Rishi with that mala, right? Each turn of the mala is a reminder that I am Brahman.
Right. Yeah.
You don't seem convinced, Pandana?
No, maybe it's more of a one-on-one discussion.
Possible. Okay, we can have that too.
Thank you.
All right. So with this, we'll stop. Thank you for your patience. Om Punamadav Punamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Raviji.